Okay, it seems to be time. So good morning, everybody. My name is Tim. I'm from France. I'm what we call a UX guy. So I'm talking about user experience each day. And user experience is about rich internet application or rich interactive application. So my talk today is about WPF application and how you can use Blend to create WPF application. Before I start, who is designer in this room? Is there some designer there? Just 2 people? 3 people? Okay. So it's a technical session, but I will show a lot of things done. A lot of things could be done without coding. So sorry if I am too much technical for you. Oh, it's not working. Okay, I have 4 parts in this session, and a very big part is the last one. I will spend perhaps 30 minutes about showing you how you could use Blend to create a rich interactive application. Sorry. So the first part is about WPF, Windows Presentation Foundation. How many people there is already doing application based on WPF in this room? Okay. Who are using only Visual Studio? Nearly the same person. Who are using already Blend? Okay, not the same person. So before starting showing Blend, I will explain a little about WPF. So what is WPF? It's part of .NET framework. So when you install the framework 3.0, you have WPF in the framework. If you just install Vista, you already have a .NET framework installed in Vista. So you need .NET to run WPF application. And what we bring in WPF is a new engine for rendering object. So you have a new rendering engine for Windows in WPF. And what you can do with this new engine is to manipulate vectors, but also all media. You can manipulate videos, you can manipulate pictures, and you can do some animation and transformation on all these objects. So it's a new kind of feature you will have for creating rich interactive application. And because we have this new engine, we have a new opportunity to create a very creative application on Windows platform. And I will show you how you have to think differently, because WPF can bring you a new kind of application. So let's see some application done in WPF. So the first one is a player. We have done this for Eurosport in France. So it's a Windows application, WPF application. It's about live TV. The network is not very good here, so I don't have a live TV. But if the bandwidth is enough, you will have a live TV there. But I can access to the video on demand. I just click on this. So the network is very bad. I can switch to another video on demand, and because there are a lot of video on demand, I can choose one of them in a 3D object, because WPF allow you to manipulate 3D object. If I want to look at the news, we use the same control there. So you have a 3D object for switching to the news. What I can do is to go to full screen. I can keep all the things on the video. And I can choose another video, and I can interact with the application even if I am in full screen. I can go back to the normal size. I can just go to the small size, put it on the bottom of the window if I like. And because we really want to have an object, what you see there is some animation on the button, and we want to simulate some piano touch. But we use 3D when you click, for example, on playlist to show you different information. You can switch to the player and switch to the playlist in a 3D scene. So you can do a very exciting application based on WPF. And finally, if you want to configure this application, we put the configuration at the back of the player. So you really have to think differently your application because you have new opportunity with WPF. Okay, let me close this application. We done another player for French TV. This player is about information. It's the LCI player. And I just want to show you that all the players have been done in Blend. So, for example, I have a logging box there. I can animate this control. Let's show authentication. Okay. So all the application can be rendering in Blend, and you can really develop all the things in Blend. So I will show you later about Blend. Another sample is about a Fnac application. It's about Fnac is a retailer. I think you know this retailer. So it's a click once application, and we use the WPF to provide a new way to choose article. So for example, you can enter to the computer space, and you have something like a cart. So you can browse the article, go and look to a specific article, choose the information you want to read. You can select and put in the basket some computers, go to the basket, and compare the article. So this is a WPF application, and it's really new because you don't have a Windows button, for example, or lister box or something like this. All is graphic, and it's pretty. It's a very pretty application. A last sample. It's about a book. This application was done by a colleague from France. All the source code is available, so you can download it and look how he has done this application. So it's about electronic digital book, but we use WPFR. So this is a rendering for a 3D object. You can go to the next page. Because WPF can let you manipulate all things. It could be graphics, it could be animation, it could be videos, or also it could be applications. So you have really a real control there. I can go to the next page, etc. But the cool things there is that we want to imitate a book. So you can turn the page like you will turn a real book. As you can see, there is a video there. And if you know little about WPF, you know that you can handle XPS document. So this is a book print by XPS technology, and I can browse the book inside this book and turn the pages. So it's very important to think differently the application we done in WPF. Okay. So how will you create a WPF application? You can write C# code or VB code for creating WPF application. And it's very similar to Windows Form application. For example, you have some code there to instantiate a window in Windows Form. The same code could be done in WPF, and it looks very similar to the Windows Form code. So the only thing which changed, you have controls there, you had add child there, and you have different stuff to do for the application. But the code is very similar. But if you code in C# or VB, it will not be very productive. And you won't be able to collaborate with designer because you're still in the code and you cannot exchange visual with designer. And your application will look like traditional Windows application. So don't do that. Instead, use XAML. XAML is a new language we introduced in WPF. It's based on XML specification, and it's really make the collaboration with developers and designers better. So use XAML. But if you use XAML, still EL code. So XAML will be transformed in C# or VB code. There will be a transformation from the XML files, and we will transform at the build time the XAML language to C# or VB language. So it's still inside C# or VB. But something called BAML, I will show you after. So let's have a look to a technical look to XAML. I just launched Orcas, which is the beta Visual Studio 2008. And let's create an application, a WPF application in Orcas. So I just create a new project, choose Windows application. Okay. So the thing which is very different to Windows Form is that all the design will done on the interface will write XAML code there and not C# or VB code. So let's put a button there and just compile this application. Okay. If I look at the file which was produced when I compiled this application, project WPF 29. Okay. So in the bin directory, I will have the application compiled, but in the obj directory, I will have all the temporary files created by the compilation at the compilation time. And what I see is the Windows .xaml will transform to a Windows.g.c#. So if I look at this code, I will see all the things needed to instantiate the button I put in the interface. So XAML will be transformed to C#, and it's a build process that we already have in the data platform. But XAML, you can do something very interesting. For example, if I put just change the color of the button. Oh, the field is already used. Oh, sorry, the background. Okay. So the color is red. I just write some string there. But if I write FF9, I don't know which color I'm writing. Okay, oh, it's near red. So I can also write the color in a different way, and it's working. So the information there can be changed. It could be string, it could be integers, it could be everything. So how will you handle this kind of property? This string will be evaluated at the runtime, at runtime. So it will not be transformed and converted in C#. It will stay in the resources, and we call these resources BAML, B-A-M-L. So this thing is not converted to C#. Okay. So that's why on my slide, I'm saying that XAML is XAML plus C#. You will have EL code, but you also have BAML. Okay. So this is the technical things about XAML. And it's very difficult to write XAML because, okay, you can read it because it's XML file, but it's very hard, painful to write XAML by hand. But sometimes you have to do. So the better thing is to use another tools, and we provide Blend for writing XAML code. So Blend is the professional tools for interactive designer. we really want to target interactive designer, not really developer. A developer could integrate the code, but we want to integrate the visual also. So we call this kind of profile interactive designer. And Blend is part of Visual Studio. Visual Studio is about 4 projects. You have in Expression Studio, you have Expression Blend, Expression Design, Expression Media, and Expression Web. Expression Web is about a website. You do not have XAML in the project, but Expression Blend will manipulate XAML application, and Expression Design will let you produce visual for XAML. So you can make a visual and just export it to XAML file. So you can provide visual to Blend, and this tool is targeting designer. Expression Media is a different project. Expression Media lets you manage all your media content, and you also have an encoder for video in Expression Media. And the workflow is very clear between these tools. You will use Visual Studio to make all the technical stuff. You will use Expression Blend to do all your visual stuff. The visual can be exported to Blend. If you change the visual, you have to export it again. We are not bidirectional there. But the code can be exchanged with Visual Studio in a bidirectional way. Okay. So that is the workflow we have between the different tools. If I just talk a little about the roadmap of Blend, because for new people, it's very complicated to understand what we are doing. So we just released on September the first version of Blend. So you have version 1.0 already released. And this version is targeting WPF 3.0 application, okay, just for WPF application. What we are doing is to provide in the next year Blend 2.0, and Blend 2.0 will target the WPF 3.5 application and Silverlight 1.0. And after that, you will have Blend 3. I cannot tell you when, but perhaps in 2009. You will have Blend 3.0, which will target WPF application, perhaps a new version, but we will also target Silverlight 1.1. Each time when we release a project, we will provide you the preview of the next version. So this is why you can download right now the preview of Blend 2. And when Blend 2 will be available, we will provide you the preview of Blend 3. So that's the way we are working with this project. Okay. So on the machine, I install an internal build of Blend 2. Okay, let's see what Blend is. So if you look at the interface of Blend, there are a lot of things. You have a artboard there, you have a zoom there, you can switch between the design of the XAML code, you have a toolbox there, you have a visual tree, and the visual tree is very important when you design WPF application. I will show you why. You have some panel to switch between the project, the properties of the objects, or the resources. And you also have some triggers there, because you can handle animation and fire the animation between, you can fire the animation with triggers. And also you have a timeline there to define the animation. So let me show you after with the project. What you can do in a Blend, you can do a lot of things that WPF provide. So you can make some draw, you can manipulate vector objects, shape. You also can manipulate all the layout containers WPF provide. You have the feature of rendering in WPF. Blend can let you manipulate the different rendering we have in Blend. So you have the rendering and the layout rendering transformation. All the data binding mechanism of Blend is of WPF is available in Blend. The notion of style and template is also available in Blend. Animation can be done in Blend. Visual resources can be used by Blend. You can manipulate all kind of media, even 3D object, but Blend cannot let you create a 3D object. You just manipulate a 3D object provided by third-party tools. And you can build some control, create some control, user or custom control in Blend. So you can do a lot of things what WPF provides in Blend. What Blend cannot do is to let you write C# code or VB.NET code. You have to use Visual Studio to do that. XBAP application is not really supported by Blend, so you have to make some code by hand to create XBAP application with Blend. So you cannot build 3D object. And the flow document, something you have in WPF, it's not really handled, it's not a feature, but Blend will let you manipulate. So flow document, for me, is missing in Blend. Okay, let's have a big demo of Blend. And I will try to show you a lot of things in this big demo. Okay, let's start. Blend. So I will create a new project in Blend, and when I create a project, I can choose between WPF application or Silverlight application, for example. So let's choose WPF application. I can select the language I wanted to use, Visual Basic.NET or C#. And I also, with this new preview, I can choose between framework 3.0 or framework 3.5. So let's do a framework 3.0 application. So what you see there is a window, and I have a lot of tools there. And if I am a designer, I will just use the tools provided for drawing. For example, I can use a pen, just make some path there. Okay. I can fill this path with a color or a gradient. Just modify the gradient there. And what is very interesting there, it's just a shape. So if I look at the XAML code, I see that it's a path. But the interesting thing there is, for example, I can put a cursor. Just look at the property cursor. I can choose a cursor, for example, a hand. If I launch this application, just press F5. I have a Windows application, and when my mouse comes up the shape, the hand is showing. So the active, the control is really there. Okay, it's not a rectangle, it's the shape you have designed. So it's very interesting because you can just draw something, make some region sensible to the mouse, and you can handle the click on this area. Let's do the click on this area. In Blend, you have a property of an object in the panel property, and you can switch to the event property by clicking on this button. And we have all the properties, all the events, provided by this object. So if because it's not a button, if I look at the mouse left button down, I can double click there because I want to write the event handler. And because I cannot write C# code in Blend, Blend just launched Visual Studio. So that's why you have to have Visual Studio installed if you want to write some C# or VB code. So I have an event handler there, and I can make something like this, message box. Show. Hello. And I am in Visual Studio. I can compile the application and test the application. Okay. If I click outside, we have nothing. So this is really something very interesting. But the tools can communicate. So if I go to Blend, so I press F5, I'm showing the same project. So I have the same the same application. If I modify something in a Blend, just add a new shape. If I save this project, go back to Visual Studio. If I look at the Windows XAML file, I will show the same thing. If I compile it, I have the same application. If I move the rectangle there, save it, go back to Blend, Blend knows that the application file was changed, so you can reload it and have a new version. So the tools can communicate between Visual Studio and Blend. You can collaborate with designer and developer. So you can make some draw with Blend. You can make some path operation. For example, if I draw some circle there, okay. If I select all this circle, just the circle. Okay. I can go to the object menu and make some operation. For example, I can divide all the draw. I can release all the object, and now I have all path there. It can be manipulated individually. So you have a lot of tools for making draw and making some really really good visual in Blend. Let's do a new project. Another thing that you should understand in Blend is the notion of containers. When you are drawing something on the screen, you are drawing something in a containers. So if you look at the visual tree, I see that in this application I have a window. The type of this object is window. I have a layout root, and the type of this object is a grid. Grid is a container. If you do nothing, you just have one cell in the grid. So if I put a button, for example, there, if I compile this application, when I resize the window, the button resizes himself. Why? Because the button has all his border attached to the grid, the cell where he is. For example, if I unlock this border and unlock this one, the button will not resize. If I just lock the button border, it will only resize the button. You are in a grid, but you can switch with this little button to the Canva mode of a grid, or really to the grid. The grid is a very interesting container. I think we use, it is the container we use a lot in all the applications we have done. Because it's very simple to use, and you can do a lot of things very interesting with the grid. If I want to add some cell, if you move your mouse there, you can add some columns and rows. So you will add some cells in the grid. And now, because I add some column and some row, if I click on the button, the attach is different because I am in the cell. Okay? And the size of this button will be synchronized to the size of the cell. So if I just look there, okay, this control will be resized, and the size is synchronized to the size of the cell. What is interesting there is that I can put another button there, for example. another there. And just put some splitter there, a grid splitter. Another one there. Okay. If I compile, now I can resize the cell with the splitter. So you have to understand how layouts works because it's very important. WPF is vector, is based on vector, so you can resize your application. Perhaps you don't want to have the capability to resize your application. So container is very important to understand how they are working. So you have a grid container, but you have a lot of container. You have nine container in WPF. I use internal beta, so that's why the option is truncated. But in the release of Blend, you have the whole text. So you have a grid, the canva, a stack panel, a wrap panel, a dot panel, a scroll view, borders, uniform grid, and view box. Let me show you the stack panel. Just create a new application. It's better for you to see what is going. So I just put there a stack panel. And the interesting thing of a stack panel is that you can put some control inside. You can move an object. When you are on a container, you can press Alt button and the object will enter in the container. So I can put several objects in the stack panel and all objects will be stacked inside. For example, a checkbox, etc. So it's very useful for example, creating a menu with different objects. But you have to choose which container you will base on. The wrap panel is also a container very interesting. The wrap panel have a different behavior. I can add some object inside, for example, button. I just copy this object, paste it. And what's happened there, depending on the side of the wrap panel, the component will be switched on several lines and rows. Okay. So if I run this application, and because I am in a grid, you will have this behavior. So again, it's very important to think about layout and what container you will use in the application. Another container which is very interesting is the view box, the last one. All things you will put in the view box will stay proportional to the size. So if you put, for example, this wrap panel in the view box, okay, all the control in the view box will stay proportional to the size of the view box. So again, very important to think about the container you will use in your application. Now, let me show you how you can do with animation in Blend. I will just make a better application. So let's put some gradient there, a rectangle here, around the corner. Just put some text, not text box, some text there. Okay. Just change the size of font. Okay, and the color. Okay, we still white. Imagine that it is a player. So I will just add a video in this application. Okay. Okay. So if I compile the application, the video will play here. That's good, but perhaps I would like to have some animation when the windows start. To do that, you go to the animation workspace. You can switch between design workspace or animation workspace. It's the same control, but when you do animation, it's better to have the animation panel at the bottom. So what you could do is to create animation by clicking on the plus button. And by default, when you create the animation, it will fire when the Windows is loaded. So let's create an animation. Let's say that I want the video to be there after 3 seconds. So you just put the timeline on 3 seconds, click on this button to record this keyframe on this object. And before, at the start, I want this player to be outside the window. So what's happened? It's that the player will come back, will come in the screen after 3 seconds. You can put some, you can record some keyframe before. For example, I will make some acceleration. So at this point, I want the object to be there. We have this kind of animation. Okay. So if I run the application, the video is moving. I can do the same thing on the title. For example, before I will group this object into a grid. So after 3 seconds, I want to have the title there. But before, I want to make it grow. So you will have this kind of animation. So animation is very interesting, but you have to think how the object will appear or disappear, because you can do something which is not very pretty quickly. Okay. Let's show you. I'll show you now. I'll talk about data binding. Okay, let's do another application. So data binding is something very important in WPF because you have to think the code differently if you use data binding. The first sample I will show you is about data. If I want to have some data in this application, I have to have perhaps a file, an XML file with the data, or I can make a call to a database, or just call a business object, which return me some data. For my first example, I will use an XML file. So I just choose a XML file. This XML file is about a project. By the way, I didn't mention that Blend is based on WPF. So because it's too small for you, I can change the size of application. So it's better for you to see what I am doing. Because I have some images for the project, I just create a directory there and put the images in my project. Okay. item. Okay. And now what I can do is just drag and drop the element there on the form. And Blend will ask me what control I want to have for this information. Because it's an array, so I want to have something like a list box or a combo box, or I have to have a list to show the information. So I will just choose list box. And then will ask me some question, because WPF can make data binding in one way. You just take data, put it in a control, and you forget the data. Or you can do two-way, so if a source is modified, the data in the control will be modified also. So I just choose, for my example, one way, sorry. Okay. And because each project has several attributes, Blend is asking me what kind of control I will use for each attribute. By default, he will choose text block, but I can change, for example, the images to have image control. And this is the rendering that I will have for each item in my list box. Each item Blend will use a stack panel for each item, but I can choose, for example, a grid for each item. Okay. And when I click finish, I have here a list box with all the items. All items is showing a specific project. Okay. If I compile it, my list box is working, and it's not really list box. Okay, it's a list box, but with some kind of information like a form, because I have the description of a project, I have the images, I have a price, etc. We are using template there, so I will talk about template later. But we are using the template WPF for doing these kind of things. Perhaps before going ahead, I will show you something. Okay. Again, you have to think differently when you are using Blend. So let me show you something. I will use a stack panel there. And I will just put it will be more funny if I use another tools. Sorry, I will use these tools. It's not funny to see it in there. So it's a free tools. You can write some XAML code there, and the XAML code will be rendering at the top. So let me just write stack panel. And I just want a button in the stack panel. Okay. So after a few seconds, the rendering is there. Let me put a checkbox there. Okay. And if I ask you to have a checkbox in the button, it's very difficult to do in Windows application. Okay. But in WPF, we don't care about the rendering of the controller. So you can put anything in anything. So if I just remove the caption there, just put the control inside the button, it's working. I have a button with a checkbox. Okay. So you have really to think differently, even with Windows control. Okay. The button just let you put one object inside, but you can choose to have a container. Okay. Just put the checkbox now in the container. So because I have a container, I can put several objects. For example, I will put a video. Okay. And the video will play in the button, and the checkbox is there. Just resize the video. Oh. Okay. To really see that I have a real button there, checkbox there, and the video inside the button. Okay. So why I am showing you this? Let's make a mistake there. Just want to stop the video. Okay. Because what I have done in Blan with a lister box is the same thing. I have a lister box, but in each item I have a grid or a stack panel, a container, and in the container I have several objects. Okay, but I will explain you in more detail after. So data binding is very important because I just make, for this sample, a drag and drop with XML files, and I have a control instantiated with the data. But you can really do something very interesting with data binding, because all object, all property of all object can be bound to another data or another object. So, for example, if I put let's put images here, and let's say that I have a slider. Okay. And what I want to do is to change the size of images with a slider. So if you think about Windows Form application, perhaps you will make a event handler for the slider, and when the position change, you just change the size of images. In WPF, there is no code to do for this kind of feature. I will just make a binding between the reach of this control and the position of this slider. So I click on the images, go to the property, choose the reach property, and I will click on this little button to make a binding. Oh, okay. Let's come back later. So I just make a data binding. I can bind to a data source, for example, the XML file I just dropped. But I also can bind this property to an element in my window. So let's choose the slider, and I am interested in the value of a slider. So I'm just making a bind between the value property of a slider to the reach property of an image. Finish. So let me set the mean of a slider. Oh, sorry. I think my beta is. Let me compile one time. I lost my application. Okay, sorry. Blan is not writing. Okay, so sorry for that. Okay, this will be the first crash of the demo. Sorry for that. Again, I'm using an internal build. Sometimes I have some trouble. So let me do it again quickly. .pf, just put an images. example, I will take a video. Okay. Let's do it with a video file. Slider. Let's fix the mean value of the slider before to be 100 pixels and the max, for example, 400 pixels. So I will make the binding now. To the value property. Okay. So if I run it, so now the video is bound to the slider. Okay. So it is very important to think about binding, data binding, or binding to the object, because you can do a lot of things very creative, very useful with technology. And what's really happened, if you look at the XAML code, we just see something like this. The read property is bound to the value property from this object called slider. So it's very easy to write in the XAML code. Okay. But binding is also used with visual. So let me show you something. Perhaps a new application. No. Let me show you something. I can make a brush for any object, and I can also make a brush for a video. What I can do after is to take a shape and fill this shape with the brush I just created. So what's happened? The video will display in both objects. It is about binding, but visual binding. I can do the same thing with, for example, a text box. Okay. I just create a visual brush, make a rectangle there, and just choose a brush 2. And what's happened? I can type some text, and I have the visual bind to the second object. Okay? So that's very useful, for example, in financial application where you have a lot of graph. You can just have one source and have separate visual from the same visual and have a lot of graph on the application. So data binding is really, really interesting. Okay, let me show you another feature. Let's talk about transformation. For example, if I just put a button, it's not really a button, okay, just rendering like a button. But in Blend, I can make some transformation visually there. It's still working like a button. Okay. We have two kinds of simple transformation in WPF. You have here in the panel the render transformation, and if you click there, it opens another panel. You have a layout transformation. So let me show you what it means. I take a wrap panel, and I put some button inside. Okay, copy, paste. If I choose this button, I can make some transformation about, I can make a translate, a rotation, scale the object, skew the object, change the center of the object, and make a flip on this object. The rendering is only about rendering. So if I, for example, choose a different angle, the object is just rendering with an angle. Okay. But if I choose, I'll just make a control Z too much. If I choose the layout transformation and not the rendering transformation for the angle, I really change the layout of a component. Okay. So you have different kind of transformation you can apply on the object, and the rendering one is very cool because you don't change the layout of your container because it's just rendering. And what is very interesting in that, you can do some animation, and you can take an object and make the object going outside of a container. So if I, for example, create an animation there, I can choose a button, and after a few seconds, I can put the button away. But if I don't choose rendering transformation, I have a clipping there. Okay. But if you go to the transformation, the rendering transformation, and you just translate the object, let me go to the run, because you can see the object. I think I make a mistake in the code, that's why. Just produce, I have your check to the right panel. Button. Okay, I think if I make a copy and paste, and that's why I have some trouble there. So don't worry. But if you choose rendering transformation, you can do some animation where the object going outside the container. It is possible, even if the object normally is inside the container. Okay. I will try to show you after this kind of demonstration. So let's talk about now about the 3D object. You cannot create 3D object in Blend, but you can use 3D object. Let me show you an application before. This one. Okay, just compile the application. So you have a 3D object there, and when I click on the button, we are doing some animation on the 3D object. Okay. So how can you do something like this? For example, I can add in my window just a picture. And I can make a 3D scene for this object. Now with this control, I can modify the position of the camera of the object. Okay. So you just take a picture and make a 3D scene. So I have a viewport 3D there, and you can manipulate in a 3D scene the images. So you can make some animation on this. Just create a storyboard, and for example, choose the position for the star. and after a few seconds, just move the object. So you have this kind of animation. But if you have really 3D object, you just open a Visual Studio project, close it, I will open it in Blend. Okay. Here is the 3D object. Then go to the design workspace. So I can open the 3D report, choose the camera, choose the light, and all the property there, you can bind something or make some animation on the property. So I've just looked to the scene there. I can make some rendering transformation. So you just have to animate the object by changing the value of a property there. Okay, so it's very easy to manipulate a 3D object in DAM. Okay, so now I will show you something very, very important because you can, all things I show you can be used in style and template. So that's why I wanted to show you style and template at the end of my presentation. Because when you think about all this kind of feature, you really can do some rich application with Blend. So let's do a new project. And I will talk about style and template. For example, if I just put some checkboxes in my window, and I want to be sure that all checkboxes has the same rendering. So what you can do is to create a style. I will just go to Object, Edit Style, create a style. So I can just create a copy of the style I have here. The style will have a name, and it will be put in the resources. Okay. So I can reuse the style for another project if I want. All thing you will do, for example, if you change the size of the font, is recorded in the style. I just want to change the color. The color of the text. Okay. And after you have done a style, you can apply another object, the same style. And if you change the style is propagated in all the objects. So it's like a CSS for the HTML code, but it's still XAML for the WPF. So style let you change the property and propagate the property on object. Template is a little different. Let me put a button there, and I can create a template on this object. Like the style, I can create a copy of an object or an empty one. If I choose empty, so the template has also a name, I have nothing in the button. And you can create your own visual for this button. So I can, for example, put a grid as a container. And in the grid, I can draw something. For example, I can choose pen. Okay. Or I can launch design, make a draw in design, and export it to Blend. Come on. Okay. So just create a new visual there. let's create a button. Okay, with a stroke. Just copy this object 3 times. Just want to make some reflect for this button. Okay. Okay. Oh. Just want to have the top of the subject. We just resize it a little. No stroke. Okay, let me change the gradient. Okay, and this one. Okay. And for the reflect, we make sure the subject is on top. And now just make the opacity of the subject. Make a button. Okay. So just select these 3 objects, group them, copy the object to XAML, go back to blend, and just want to paste it before. Paste. And put it in my template. Instead of a path. Okay. So you can create your own button by doing some visual and put it in the template if you want. There is another way which is more faster, but a template is a very good thing because you can use a template. But the template looks like a button, but it could be another thing because the template lets you modify the original control. For example, I will just read it, this object. I have my visual there, but I can put another control in the button, for example, a checkbox. I can put another button in the button. So this is my new template for the button. If I put a button on my window, I can apply a template I create, and I have the same look and feel. Okay. So what a template can do is to change only the visual of an object, but it can also change the object itself. So you can just have the technical things. For example, I just want something like a button because I want the mouse to come and to have a mouse over a mouse click. But I don't care about what I will have in this controller. So the template will give me the visual and perhaps the functionality because I change all the object. But what we do most time in the template is to make some behavior for an object. Let me show you how you can do. Just put another button. Just want to have a new template and create an empty button. I put a grid inside, and inside the grid, I just put a rectangle. With a corner. And what I want is, when the mouse is on the button, is to change the color of this rectangle. And when I press the mouse button, I want to have another color. And because I want to have this behavior on all my buttons, I want to have a template to do that. So what you can do is to have some triggers on the property in the template. So I can add a trigger choose the event of a trigger, for example, when the mouse is over this control. When it is over, so I have to put true there. I just want to change the color of a rectangle. For example, I just want to have a radial gradient there, and perhaps change the color to be yellow. And I can also add a property when I press on the button. So I add a new property, trigger, and I choose the press trigger expression. And I want to have another color when the button is pressed. So I just, for the rectangle, choose again a radial gradient, but I want to change the color, perhaps red. So what I have done there, if I run the application, I was on the template. Okay, sorry, I wasn't in the template. Is mouse over true? Is mouse. I think I'm tired. Oh, thank you. Edit the template. Okay. True. Okay, thank you. My blend version is press number is not big because it has a quite file type name. White is not good. Oh, something wrong is happened there. Okay, very sorry for that. Very sorry for that. Just do it again. Better. More quickly. Create an empty template. Okay. Just put a grid there. Inside the grid, rectangle. I think I'm doing it too fast. Just add a property event. Is mouse over true. And just make a region. Okay. Just verify if this is working. Okay, first step is working. Next step, just add in the template another property. So when the mouse is pressed, true. And I just want to change the color. Okay. Let's see it's working. And the press button doesn't work. It's pressed. Okay, sorry for that, but normally it's work. I think I make a mistake because I'm too hurried. But what I want now to show you is that it's not really enough because I have to do something else. If I just add images in my application, and I just want, because this is a button with a template, I just want to put these images in the button. You will not be able to see it. It disappears. Okay, it disappears because I create a template with some behaviors, and I wanted to, if someone put something inside the button, I want to preserve what he gave me. So I have to say where I want to rendering these things. So in the template, I have to add another thing in the grid, something called content presenter. So the content presenter is the area where I want to show the object inside the button. So now if I put the image in the button, I can see it. So if I press F5, I can see the trigger file. So normally when I click, we have a blue radial, but I have made a mistake there. So template is very important. And when I had before a XAML file, and when I just drag and drop the data and choose this box, there, what's really happened, okay, Blend make a template for each item. And if I wanted, I can change the template. Okay. Perhaps it's too big, so I can resize all the component there. S3 my mouse is not really working, so that's why I have some trouble. Just resize the panel to see what's happened. Stack panel. Okay. So it's just about templates. So you just change the template of the item, and you can make the visual differently. And each data is, we are using data binding for showing the data from the XML files. So you can combine all the things to have a great internet application, interactive, application in Blend. So, sorry, I'm running out of time because I have made some mistake at the end of the presentation. But I hope it will give you an idea what you can do in WPF and in Blend. So thank you very much for your attention. And if you have some questions, come back and I will ask, and I will answer to your question there. Thank you.